Hi everybody, this would be part 26 in the character rigging tutorial series. Last video we set up the controls for the torso, so that way that we can move and rotate the individual parts of the torso. This video we'll talk about setting up controls for the arms. So we're going to continue on with constraints and in particular forward kinematic based controls. So these are individual curve controls for the major joints that will rotate the individual joints. So the pelvic constraint was a parent, pelvis control was a parent constraint, which gives me the option to move and rotate that control and the joints associated with it. The spine and the neck controls were all orient constraints, so I don't plan to ever move these. So those are forward kinematic orient constraints. We also use the offset controller script to make sure we have subgroups that still keep that rotate angle. So we're going to do that same command here within this video for the arms. So we're going to set up a control for the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. And we'll do the same thing for the other side of the arm. And then in a later video, we'll come back and talk about finger control setup, helper control setup, and twist control setup. So we'll come back and do the other subset parts for the arms and legs in a later video. So we're going to use curves again. So we'll take another circle. You don't have to use circles. They're just easy to use and can easily be manipulated. So that's why I choose to start with them. So what I can do is take this circle and hold down the V key. And let's turn off our geometry for a second. And snap that to the center of that shoulder joint. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. So I'll do positive 90. So that way I can see this control outside the body. Let's scale it down some. But I'm also going to go to control vertex. And this is just an opportunity here. You don't have to change the position. But what I can do is kind of pull this out so it looks like it goes underneath the armpit. And this will be the control for the shoulder. All right. So there's that one. And that will be our shoulder control. So say control left shoulder. Okay. We'll come back in a later video and also do like a clavicle control as well. We'll do subset body parts later. Let's go to another circle. And this one is going to be for the elbow. These are all going to be forward kinematic controls. I'm going to hold down the V key and snap this. Let's turn off my geometry again. Snap this to the center of my elbow joint. But I always want to turn my geometry back on so that I can see how large my joint needs to be. I don't want to have, or controls, I don't want to have controls that are like this. That's too large for an elbow control. So I want it to be large enough that I can see it outside the body, but not too large that it's obstructing other controls in my hierarchy. All right, so one thing we want to make sure, let's actually just position all of these and then we'll come back and do the rotates. I'm going to duplicate that elbow control and move that down to the wrist. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and name these. Control left elbow. Control left wrist. These will all be forward kinematics. Okay. All right, so one thing we want to make sure of is that from a top view, the shoulder control follows the length to the elbow. So that was just a quick 5.5 degree rotate there. We want to make sure that the control follows the same rotate angles as the joint. Let's go to the front view. And we also want to make sure, I think it's completely straight, but that the horizontal rotate follows the length to the elbow as well, which it is. So I'm pretty good there. From the top view, we want to rotate the elbow control forward. So that follows in line to the wrist. Let's go to the front view. Just make sure that's straight. Yep. So from the two major angles of that elbow, we want to make sure that that control follows the same angles as the joint. Let's go to the wrist. And for the wrist, I typically would put that in the center, in between the middle and the ring finger, because that's really the center of the hand. Some people put it in the center of the middle finger as well, of how the body will rotate. One of the two is pretty close to what we're looking for here. So I'm going to put this to the center in between the middle and the ring finger. Let's go to a front view and just make sure. It might be good just to rotate this up just a little bit because our base finger joints are up a little bit there. That'll work. All right, maybe the wrist control could be a little smaller as well. So separating like shapes of the curves as well, or size and scale, could also help you as you animate be able to know what body part you're selecting. So I could come create a star for the arm instead of a circle, since I did circles for the torso. I have a foot shape for the foot. I could also differentiate this with colors, and I'll show that in a couple later videos as well. So I have a shoulder, an elbow, and a wrist control. I'm going to duplicate these and move these over to the other body part, the other arm. So this is going to be the right shoulder. So I want to hold down the V key, snap that over to the shoulder, and I want to mirror this over. So it should be the x-axis again, or let's see, nope, I rotated this sideways, so this is the y-axis. So let's put a value of -11 dot whatever it is for scale y, and that should rotate it back around to the other axis here. Okay, we'll adjust the rotate later. Let's take our wrist and snap that wrist control back to the wrist joint on that side. We'll do the same thing for the elbow. We'll snap the elbow to that side as well. Now from the rotate standpoint, we just need to make sure these controls are rotated properly. So let's rotate this one back. Go to the front view. That one's still pretty good for the front view. From the elbow, let's rotate this one forward. There we go. For the wrist, let's just rotate that one forward. Right there. From the side view, that should be, nope, it's down. So we're going to rotate that up. There you go. All right, perfect. All right, so we could mirror them over, but I typically will just duplicate and adjust the rotates in position as I need to. So our 6 controls that we've created look like this. One for the shoulder, one for the elbow, and the wrist for each arm. Okay, the look of the curve doesn't really matter as long as it's outside the body and can be selected without having to go into wireframe mode. All right, we're going to select all 6 and go to Edit, Delete by Type History. Deletes the history on all these controls, but we cannot freeze the transforms. So we need to use that offset controller script from the previous video, which is from Tina O'Haley's Rig It Right book again. We can use this offset controller script to do the freeze transformations by creating these dummy groups for us. So this is what a group node looks like right there. So that's what we'll create now. So we're going to do this one at a time. I'm going to select the shoulder control, shift select the shoulder joint. Make sure oops, I have the issue again of it not allowing me to recall this. So let's delete that tab again, and I'm just going to open up that script again. Desktop offset controller .mel. There you go. All right, so then I'm going to hit Control A in the script down here. That gives me an option to execute. So Control, shift select the joint, run the offset controller script. Then I'm going to select the control and shift select the joint again. And we will repeat what we did last video and go to constrain orient, but we're going to make sure maintain offsets turned on. So let's do add. Okay, we can go test that. I can get my control, rotate that. That should rotate the shoulder joint. Let's hit undo. My transforms are back to 0, but my rotate angle was saved. So the offset controller script did its job. Let's select the curve for the elbow. Shift select the joint for the elbow. Execute our offset controller script. And then reshift select the elbow joint. Constrain orient. We'll do the same thing. Let's test that out. Rotate, looks good. Same thing for the wrist. Select the wrist control, shift select the joint, run the offset controller script, reshift select the wrist joint, constrain orient. Okay, do the other arm. So control for the shoulder, shift select the shoulder joint, run the offset controller script. Let's test that out. Whoop. Let's actually undo that. Oh wait, we didn't do the constraint. So we did the offset controller script, that works properly, but now we need to shift select the shoulder joint, constrain, orient. Now we test it out. There you go. So with forward kinematic controls, it's a two-step process. We have to select the elbow and then the elbow joint, control, then the joint, run the offset controller script, which zeroes out the transforms properly, reshift select the elbow joint, and then go to constrain, orient. Then we can test out our elbow control. There you go. Do the wrist, select the wrist, control, shift select the wrist joint, run the offset controller script, reshift select the wrist joint, constrain, orient. And let's close that out, and we will rotate that joint. Everything looks good. We have our groups, but the hierarchy is not set properly. So if I rotate my shoulder control, see it's doing some weird things with the elbow. So we just need to reorient the hierarchy back up to the pelvis. So once again, if I move the pelvis again, my arms will not move with it. They won't rotate with it as well. So if I rotate, they're not moving or rotating with the torso. So I'm going to hit shift on the plus symbol for each one of these groups so I can see the curve. And we're going to work our way from the ends of the hands to the torso. Left wrist group. Okay. Whoop, I never renamed these when I copied them over. So let's go ahead and do that. Left shoulder one, yeah. All right, so let's go rename all of this. Underscore right. Go. Right. Right. Remove the one at the end. Right. Right. Whoop, no, we're just removing that. Remove the number, and we'll change this to control right each time. Go. So I'm renaming the group and the curve. All right, so we're gonna go on the right arm and select the right wrist group, then hold down the control key and click on the curve for the elbow and hit P for parent. So it's always gonna be group parented to the curve. P for parent. Should always be indented in. Then we're gonna move up, we're gonna select the group for the elbow, hold down the control key and click on the shoulder curve. P for parent. Hold down the shift key on the plus symbol to open up our hierarchy. Should all be indented in once each time. Let's go to the left arm, select the left wrist group, hold down the control key and click on the left curve. P for parent for elbow. There we go. I'm going to select the left elbow group, hold down the control key and click on the left shoulder curve. P for parent. There we go. So our arms should all work properly now. There we go. There we go. But what we also need to do is parent up our shoulder group to spine 3 curve. So let's select the left shoulder group, hold down the control key and click on the spine 3 curve. P for parent. There we go. Right shoulder group, I'm going to hold down the control key and click on the C spine 3 curve. P for parent. There we go. So that hierarchy should look like that now. You can pause the video if you want to make sure you have the hierarchy set properly. But what that means is now with the control spine curve, when I rotate that, it should rotate the arms and the neck. If I go down in hierarchy, if I select the neck spine joint or control, rotate that, it should rotate everything above that. And everything above that should work all the way down to the pelvis. So the pelvis should now move and rotate everything. All right, so that's how we can create forward kinematic controls for the arm. We'll come back in a later video and do finger controls, and then we'll also do the collar or clavicle and helper and twist joints.